What's up, everybody? I'm back after a long hiatus. Sorry I haven't been posting videos. I've just been super busy and I haven't really had time. But I'm back here with a 2010 Chevy Equinox, and it came in, it wouldn't start. I suspected the timing chain, and sure enough, timing chain is El Broco. And it's hard to see down in there, but one of the parts that the chain rides on is broken, and as well as it's hard to see that either. But right there is a bunch of metal shavings. The oil's got a ton of metal shavings, so we're gonna pull this motor out. We're probably looking at an engine replacement. I don't know if we're gonna be able to fix this, or if it's even worth fixing. This has got 157,000 miles on it, so it does have some wear, but I don't think it's going to be worth rebuilding. It's got some grooves on the cam lobes, and probably just going to pull this one out and either put a remanufactured one in or get a used one from the junkyard. So I was going to show you a step by step. This one will come out of the top. I've done it before, so I'll give you a step by step for anybody that's got these cars. This is a little 4-cylinder. I can't remember the liters on this thing. 2.4, I believe. It's a pretty simple job. There's really nothing to it. I'm gonna, like I always do, I'm gonna pull the engine and transmission as an assembly, unless I see a reason not to. But usually it's easier, and I'm sure the book and everything calls for you to pull it from the bottom. But you know me, I like to pull them from the top, and it is possible on here. If you notice, there's a way to pull this little front bar, whatever you want to call it, support bar. You can pull it off and this whole thing will come out. It'll be a little bit of a tight squeeze, but it won't be that bad. I've done it with worse. So let me get some things set up and we will get started. So obviously the first thing you want to do is disconnect the battery. Since we're going to be pulling it from the top, we're going to just take the battery out. If you weren't pulling it from the top, you would just disconnect the positive cable from right here and you'd be fine. But the engine computer is right on top of the battery, so we're going to get rid of that first. You got a 10mm bolt there and a 10mm bolt right there, looks like. So we're going to pull that off. This cover just comes right off, and then we'll get to the battery. There's probably just some 10mm bolts to unhook the terminals, and we'll get that battery out of there. And then we're going to start pulling all this stuff off right here. Going to get all these plastic covers. These are just little clips. If you see that little groove right there, you just stick a flathead or a pick or something in there and pop this center part out, and then these come right out, and a couple of 10mm bolts to come out. We'll go ahead and get all this cover off, battery and the computer, and then we'll get going. Alright, so before we do the battery and the ECM, I'm going to get a little more light on the subject here. I'm going to go ahead and take this hood off. There's 2 bolts on each side, 13mm, I do believe. Yep. You just pop the bolts off here and off here. There's no windshield washer connections or anything on here that I see. So you pop them off, and then all you got to do is take, not this side, just take a flathead, and there's a little clip. There's a little clip right there. You just pop this clip out with a flathead, and then this will pop off of the hood, and then you can just lay it down right here and get it out of the way. And then those 2 bolts, and the hood will come right off. Get that right quick. You want to be careful when you're taking the hood off. Make sure it doesn't fall and smash the windshield. That's an expensive repair. I always do the bolts first, that way you have something still kind of supporting the hood while you're taking this off. And once you take this off, that's all your support. So it's going to try to fall. Be careful with this clip because it can fly off of here. I just kind of get it halfway off, and then you can just put it back on there, because when you put that back on, you can clip it right back on there without even messing with the clip. So, let me get this hood out of the way. Alright, now it's a lot brighter over here. Be able to work a little bit better, I believe. So now we're going to get this battery and this engine computer off. Oh, actually, I'm going to take this all the way off now that I see that it's completely in the way. Just going to go ahead and get this out of the way so it doesn't bother me. I'm trying to remove it. It's the same on the bottom, it's just got a little clip. Pops right off. So we'll get that out of the way. Alright, so now we're going to take the this microphone. Hopefully y'all be able to hear me. I apologize for the fan noise, but it's kind of hot, so I got to be comfortable. So hopefully it's not as bad as my other fan. I used to have a ginormous fan in here, so hopefully that's a little bit better for you. So we're going to get a 10 millimeter now and get this computer out. Now we will disconnect this computer, but I want to get the battery disconnected first. So we're just going to move this out of the way and get the battery disconnected, and then we'll remove these connectors. That just kind of slides off of there. We'll just set this out of the way for now and put these bolts up here. What I always like to do with bolts when I'm done with them is put them right back in the holes that they were in. That way you don't lose them. Bolts and nuts. So now we're going to pop this little plastic cover off. Like I said, we're going to pop all these off anyway. So, but this one has to get out of the way because this bracket right here is underneath this plastic cover. Get these off right quick. They actually make a great tool for these. Buy them at any parts store pretty much. Stick it in, pops them right up if you have any trouble. Some of them are hard to get this tool into, so I usually just use a flathead. But as you can see, that's how those clips come out. Center just pops out and they pop out. Make sure to put these in a good spot so you don't lose them. I'm going to get the rest of these out. It's just got some clips that just pop out. And, there's that piece. So now that we got that out, there's another 10 millimeter bolt for this bracket right here. Pop that off, and that should give us all the access we need to the battery. Move that bolt back in there a little bit. One tip I always forget to tell y'all when you're pulling these motors on my other videos, I kind of neglect it, but before you do it, take you a code reader, or if you got to run it by AutoZone or something, if it's still running, take it there and check the codes. That way when you put this engine back in, you know what codes this thing had before you mess with it. Because if you get a trouble code once you get this engine, the other engine back in, or rebuild it, whatever you're doing, and you don't know if it was there before you hold the engine, then you're not going to know if it was a problem that already existed and it's some kind of wiring or computer issue, or if you messed something up, maybe pinched a wire while you were pulling the engine out. It's hard saying. That's why it's always better to just check the codes before you disconnect the battery That way you know what was on this thing. That way if there's a code when it comes back on, you can say, oh, well that one was already there, so we need to look at maybe some wiring or a sensor or something, or oh, it wasn't there, so it must be maybe something I messed up or didn't plug in, something like that. So like I said, 10mm bolts or nuts, excuse me, on the terminals. That battery will come right out of there. Hopefully yours has a nice handle like that. So now that we got the battery out of there, we're going to go ahead and carry on and get this whole battery compartment out of here. That way we have as much space right here as possible. There's 3 13mm bolts. You kind of get a little sky view here. 3 13mm bolts right here, and right here. So I'm going to pop that off right quick. Alright, now that we got the battery disconnected, we can go ahead and disconnect this computer. Not sure how well you can see that. There's 3 connectors here, and they got these red clips right here. All you do is you slide these clips up, you push this little connector in, right there, and then you push this tab all the way up, and then you just wiggle them things out of there. They might be a little bit stuck because they've been on there probably since the car was made, unless it's been worked on before. And they're all different colored, so don't worry about messing them up. They're only going to go on one spot. So, and you want to put this computer in a nice, clean, dry space. You don't want this sitting out in the weather or nothing. We'll get that put up in a bit. Alright, so now that we got that computer out of the way, we're going to go ahead and take all these covers off. Like I said, you got some 10mm bolts and these clips, and then there's some torque screws on the front here to get it off. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all these covers, and I will be right back. So I got all those covers off, and I got all the torque screws and the little pop things off. So the next thing we're going to do is take these headlights off. These are looks to be 7mm bolts. There's 2 of them here. There's probably some under this bumper, and we're going to work on getting this bumper off too at the same time, because this middle cover, it won't come off until you get everything else out of the way. So to get the bumper off, you may not have to jack the car up, but at some point you're going to have to jack it up anyway, so it's probably a good idea to get it supported. You got a torque screw right there, and then you got 3 more of your little plastic inserts, and that'll pop this side off. And then there's a 7mm bolt. I don't know if y'all can see that or not. It's in this hole here. 7mm bolt that holds that right there. And then you'll want to go underneath the bumper, and there's some other bolts. Let me grab my creeper and I will try to show y'all the best I can. Like I said, you might be able to do this without jacking the car up yet. But if you have to, don't worry, because, you know, it's not like it's going to be not jacked up at some point. So this bumper is supported, it looks like it's all up top. So you'll have these, you'll have to get wherever these covers are unbolted. There's a little clip right there, and then that cover will be off. And then there's probably one on the other side, and that cover will be off. So it's gonna be hard to show you all this while I'm doing it, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this off, and once I get the bumper off, then I'll show y'all what's left on the headlights and this center support right here. So let me get that done, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, so I got the bumper off. I ended up leaving this on. There were just 2 7mm screws on each side, just like that. You just pop that off, and you can leave these wheel wells on because they're not going to be in our way. Then they had the fog light connectors plugged into the bumper. You just pull those apart. Just be careful, those are real brittle, they'll break real easy. So got the bumper off, sitting over there. So now the next step is to start getting this center support off. There is a 10mm bolt there. Looks like it holds the headlight on too. So we're going to get that 10mm bolt off, and these 2 7s on each side, and these headlights should come right off. and then we'll work on getting the center support. We're going to get this front bumper off so it's just out of our way. It probably would be fine to leave if you want to, but I'm just going to get it out of my way to make it easier. And also, this is obviously it's a 4-cylinder, not like the 6-cylinder Acadias, but very similar, the front end of to an Acadia. I mean, Equinox and Acadias, they're pretty close to each other, so it's not a whole, there's a few differences, but for the most part it's pretty identical. So let me get set back up and we'll get all these bolts off. So this side's obviously a little bent up, so you're probably going to look a little bit different, but there's a bolt right in there. This is going to be kind of tough to get to because it's all bent up, but it looks like it's another 7mm as well. So you take that one off, and I believe that would be all the bolts unless there's something down in here, which I doubt. So let me get that off. I'll be right back. Alright, got the headlight off. I was right. With that 7mm bolt right there, and then it just pops off. It's a little stuck up in here, but you just kind of give it a little tug, and it'll come right off. And then there's the connector. It's just a squeeze type connector. There's a little safety latch on the top. You just pull it back, squeeze it, and pull it off. So pretty simple there. Bolts. Now we'll do this side. Just clips onto the part of the headlight, and then you got that little white thing right there. You just slide it back, grab it with 2 hands, and you push that white thing, squeeze it off, you're done. Simple stuff. Alright, so that's out of the way. Now we can get this center support. This camera back where it belongs. There's the center support right there, or just the plastic piece anyway. So we got that out of the way. Now we're going to work on getting this out of the way. So let me flip the camera around and I'll show you how it works. So we got a 10mm bolt here. You obviously want to get rid of this hood latch, and it's got 13mm bolts. Looks like 2 of them, and then you'll have this little clip that you'll want to pop out with a flat head, or you can even get the cable out just like that, that way you don't damage that clip. Little connector right here, you're going to want to pop that out or slide it out one and just connect that. Another pin here. Then you got the radiator and condenser supports, 13mm there looks like, and another 10mm bolt. Then I already got these out, but these were 10mm too, and a 10mm there. And after that, this whole member should come off, and then we'll be ready to probably start draining the fluids. And we're going to go ahead and get this off too while we're right here. These are 13mm as well, I believe, and there's 4 of them on each side. You just pull them off, and this front bumper will come right off. So that's what we're going to do next. All right. There. That's a little tricky to get to there, but not too bad. Just got to kind of bend this cover back. We'll end up taking this cover off eventually. There's the radiator support bolts. That gets the radiator out of there. And Got that clip out of here. Let's go ahead and get this hood latch off. Watch this, because that's for your radiator support. Make sure you don't lose them. It's just the threaded insert. All this impacting made it slip out. So let's go ahead and screw these back into the spots they belong in. And I know I've seen some comments that say, why do you pull it from the top? So much easier to drop it from the bottom. Well, I don't know if you can see in my shop or not, but I do not have a lift. I'm working on getting one eventually, but until that point, it's not really a fun job to try to drop this thing out and lift it back in. I mean, a 4-cylinder probably wouldn't be too bad, but it requires a lot of strength, which I have, but it's just not, it's not as easy as it is to pull it out the front. I mean, this bumper comes right off, this cross member comes right out. It's just, there's nothing to it, and it makes it so much easier. You don't have to sit here and get this thing up as high as you can. Now, if I had a lift, I would probably drop it out the bottom, but I don't know. I also like making these videos because I don't see a lot of people pulling these engines on this one and other cars, other than what the factory manual says to do, which most of the cars these days is to drop it from the bottom. And some cars you don't have a choice. Sometimes you have to. I did a Honda Odyssey not too long ago, and the older ones you could get away with pulling them out of the top. It was tight, but you could do it. But the new ones, you don't have a prayer. There's not enough room. You'd have to cut the frame because they don't have this removable. So I like to do it when I can, is what I'm trying to say, because it saves me a lot of hassle. You don't have to worry about any alignments or anything like that, because when you drop the subframe, you're supposed to get it aligned. Most people don't, but anyway, it just makes it easier for me. So I'm not saying you can't do it. Anybody can do it. You can do it in your garage if you want, if that's the way you want to do it. But I prefer this way without a lift. Makes it a lot simpler. Then you can just get a hoist, and hoists are a lot more available than lifts for, you know, the everyday guy trying to fix his wife's car or his car. So there's that. We got this center support off, and it's got these two, I assume some type of front impact sensors maybe. I'm not sure. So it had some pop little rivets in there, and then this connector, it had a little red clip. You just slide it back and then squeeze that pops off. Now this one has got a torque screw in it. I have to take it loose to get to it because you can't really get the connector loose without doing it. So just a like a T27, might be a T30. Yeah, it's a T30 torque screw. T30. We'll probably just be able to loosen it enough to this thing's seized up. They really didn't look out for you on this one. Anyway, gotta get this torques out. Hopefully it doesn't break. Or strip. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that in there because it's seized up. I feel like it's about to strip. So we can figure out another way to get this connector off somehow. It's basically the same connector as this one, so I'm gonna try to get a pick in there to slide that back so I don't have to try to take that off. There we go. connectors off. The clip thing just broke, and you want to try to get them back on, but it's not that huge of a deal. So there's the center support there for the front. Get that out of the way. And what I'm going to do now is switch this camera around. What I'm going to do now, since we're to this point, is go ahead and drain the coolant. I'm not sure if this thing has a drain on the bottom of it. A lot of these newer ones don't come with one for unknown reasons. Looks like this one's the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the lower hose, and I got these clamps. You can drain it all over the place. Make a big mess if you want, but I try to stay as clean as possible. So they make these clamps. You can get them at Harbor Freight for like $5, and you just put them around the hose, clamp them down, and that'll pinch off a lot of your coolant. That way you don't make as big of a mess. You still want to get a drain pan because you're going to lose some. So I'm going to pull this lower hose that goes all the way in there. There's a hose clamp right there. I'm going to pull that hose after I pinch that. I'm also pinch this one and then pull that hose. And I'm going to drain the refrigerant too. Now, there's probably a way if you take the, well, no, there's really not a way. You're going to have to drain your refrigerant. I know a lot of people aren't comfortable with that, and if you don't have the right equipment, you need to try to get that done at a shop first. You can pull it to a shop. I mean, I know it's a hassle, especially if your car is broken, but if it's not broken, you can take it to a shop and ask them to drain and suck out all the refrigerant, because you're supposed to put it in a recovery tank, which I have, so I'm going to do that. And that way you don't have to worry about these AC lines, because you are going to, if it's coming out the top, you got to take the AC off. Now if you drop it out the bottom, I saw the manual says you could just move the compressor out of the way, because you're not going to have to move any of this stuff. So I guess that would be one benefit maybe of pulling it out the bottom, or dropping it out of the bottom. So anyway, I'm going to get the refrigerant recovered, and I'm going to get these hoses disconnected, and then we're going to take these refrigerant lines loose right here, 13 millimeter and a 13 millimeter, get them out of the way so the compressor isn't tied into the condenser anymore. There's a connector here for your electric fans, and it's got a latch there too. You just pull that and you squeeze down in the middle. And then it just pulls out. It's got some connectors that you'll want to pop out right there. Some wiring connectors and another connector to the fan, which is right there. And it feels like it's about the same as that, just some type of squeeze type connector. And then after that, all we got left is the tranny cooler lines. We're going to also slide up under the car and drain the transmission fluid. Not sure how well you can see, but there is a drain plug. When I get up under there, I'll do a video and show you. There's a drain plug on there to drain the fluid, well, at least drain most of it. That way you don't make a big mess when you're pulling this out, and it makes it a little bit lighter. So I'm going to do all that, get those hoses, get all these disconnected, recover the refrigerant. Just please make sure that you recover the refrigerant legally, because if you don't, you can get in a lot of trouble. It's illegal to just let it out into the air, and I try my best not to let any escape. So there's that. I'm going to get all this done, and then we will be back. Alright guys, so as you can see, I got the radiator out. It was all very straightforward. I did end up leaving the hose on that end. I just took it off from this side because it was a little bit easier. So, but I got the refrigerant recovered, got all the coolant drained. These lines were super easy to come off. Transmission lines, they just have these metal clips right here. You just take your pick in there and pull that metal clip out, and then you can stick it back in once you pull the line out. So now we got this whole front end exposed. As you can see, it's going to be super easy to just slide this thing out. What I'm going to do to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to take this ground screw. I got all these connectors loose here. and I'm going to get this to where I can set this whole wiring harness out of the way. That way we don't risk grabbing it on anything and moving it out of the way. So I'm going to get that out of the way and I'll be right back. Alright, so I got that out of the way. Now basically the next thing we're going to do is start getting everything out of the way that's going to be in our way to get this motor out of here. We're going to start with the wiring harnesses and work our way around. From what I can see, I'll let you know if I see anything different, but you got one connector here, and then you got a few little pop rivets that go in there, and then that'll get that out of the way. And then you got a couple wiring harnesses that go into the junction block here that will have to get loose, and a few little connectors here and there. And I'm also going to take these AC lines and just get them out of the way. It's just a 13mm bolt there, and then one there, and then this line will move. That way we can we'll have just plenty of room up here to work around. So I'm gonna get the camera set back up and we'll start working on that. It's gonna be hard to see in the dark here, but there's two connectors down here. One goes to the rack and pinion, and then the other one looks like maybe the speed sensor or something. So at any rate, you'll see these two connectors. You want to disconnect those on this side. Disconnecting a little trickier than I thought to get off, so we're going to just take them off of the car. So now we're going to start working our way around here. We can leave all this wire and stuff hooked up here. I'm going to go ahead and get these AC lines. That line. This line's got a connector on it. Go back to the roots there. There we go. Line. Next thing we're going to do, turn this camera a little bit. We're going to get this junction box open. Squeeze these little tabs here, and it pops open. And one wire we got right here looks to be an 8mm. I'm not going to lose that nut if we can help it. Put down there and put that nut back on there before we lose it. Bolt or 4 8mm bolts here. 7mm. And take them loose speed. They don't have to come all the way up, go back out and stop. And so we get all these out. And once you get them out, then you have two little clips on each side. You'll need a flathead for this. as you're prying, there's little clips on each side. You just pry them back. You can see them pretty easily. Just be easy. Try not to break them if you can help it. And just slowly pry up on this thing. Looks like there might only be one on this side. So you just slowly pry. Use these bolts as somewhat of a pulling tool while you're prying up. Gently pry up on it. And then, you want to remove this 10mm positive cable here. Get that out of your way. Now we can take these connectors that we need to, and got this one right here. Looks like it's connected to the engine, and the rest of them look like they tie back in. This positive cable you want to get over here, and there's a little coolant hose right here you want to take loose. Clamps can be a pain sometimes. There's that. That was there. A little bit tough. Alright. Let's see. All these other connectors look like they go to other things. Looks like the only other connector we have to get loose is the negative terminal right here. It's just got a connector right here. Some kind of amp sensor or something. Just pull that off. And it's got another connector right back in here. It's just another one of those squeeze type connectors. It's got a 13mm, it's going to be hard to see on the camera. It's right underneath this junction box, and that's where it grounds out from the frame. what I can see, that looks like all the connectors that we're going to have to take loose. So now our next step is going to be to take the coolant lines loose and the fuel line. I drained the coolant, but there's probably still going to be some in these coolant lines. But you got two heater hose lines right here. It's hard to see on the camera, but you'll see them back in there. You go straight to the firewall and then connects to the back of the engine. It's got some hose clamps on them. And then you got one that goes over here to this reservoir. Probably just going to take it loose from the reservoir because I already drained the reservoir, make it a little bit easier on me. And that should be good. And the fuel line is actually right here. Fuel line is right here, so let me turn the camera around. So you got it right here. This clip just pops off of here. It's just a kind of a hold down clip. And then you'll need a, they're called fuel line disconnects. Pick them up at your parts store. You can get this fancy one like this, Harbor Freight. I can't remember how much it was. 30, 40 bucks. All you do basically, the size that you need, that one's pretty small, so I'm going to say gold one. And you just take it, put it over. That's it. And what I always like to do is put a rag over it. There shouldn't be much fuel pressure on this because it hasn't ran in quite some time. But I always like to put a rag over it where you're about to squirt your eyes. And then all you do is you push this thing in here. I'm not going to be able to do it while I'm holding the camera. You push this thing in and spin it around as you pull on this fuel line and get it out of there. It's pretty simple. There we go, just like that. She's loose, piece of cake. Sometimes if you run into some older vehicles, you'll run into some times where they're stuck in there because they ain't been removed in decades. But this one's not too old. So. Alright, there's that. Now we're going to get this cool. That one, and these two for the heater core. Once you get the hose clamps off of some of these hoses, they can be stuck, and to make it easier, grab like a pair of pliers or something and twist them around a little bit to kind of break the seal loose. Let me get this. Not much, but there's a little bit left. Alright, appears that all the coolant lines are loose, so now all that's left is to go underneath the car and take the exhaust loose and anything underneath that we can't get to, those connectors that I couldn't reach, and anything else I see under there. So I'm going to get this car up on some jack stands and I will be right back. Alright guys, so I got the car up on one side for now, just to show you what I'm going to do under here. We got to take the exhaust loose. Obviously, we're going to have to take the CV axles out to be able to take this transmission out in one piece. So there's two 13mm bolts here for the exhaust, and then there's these connectors over here that I was talking about. Two connectors right there, and looks like somebody's already spliced one together right there. So I'm going to get that exhaust loose and those connectors And if I see any other connectors, I'll let you know. And then I'm going to get the rest of the car up in the air and get these tires off so we can start pulling this CV axle off. So I'll be right back. So I got the wheel off on this side. It's pretty much identical on each side except for the difference in the length of the CV axle. So I'm just going to show you this side, and if there's something really different on the other side, I'll show it to you, but they're pretty much identical except for it being opposite. So first thing you want to do is take your brake caliper off. Those are 13 millimeter bolts, I believe. Might be 15, I can't remember. So you take that one off. There's one at the bottom. Pop that off. Then you want to take your tie rod off. That is looks to be like a 19 millimeter. And then all you do is you swing a hammer right here, right on the side here, to pop this joint loose. It'll unseat this tie rod, and then that'll come off. You never want to beat on the bottom of the tie rod. I mean, unless you're just going to replace it, because you're going to damage it if you try to beat it there. So, and then you want to take these two bolts out. This is a 21 or 7/8, and you shouldn't have to hold this side. This side should pretty much be good. And then you just tap these bolts out gently with a hammer, and then this will slide down. Then you want to get you a big socket for your axle nut. Let's see if I can find the size for y'all. It is a 35 millimeter, so get you a 35 millimeter axle socket, or whatever, black socket, and you're going to take that loose and then gently tap on that just to kind of loosen up the splines on that CV axle. And then when these are loose, this will come down and it'll allow you to get that CV axle all the way up out of there. And then to get the CV axle out of the transmission, this side looks like it'll be pretty easy. You just want to stick a flathead or a pry bar right here and just really pry on it, pop it. There's a little clip on the end of it that holds it into the transmission. So when you pop it out, it'll come out. And have a drain pan. I already drained the transmission fluid underneath. I can show you where it's still kind of draining out. There's a little access plug right there. It is somewhere under here, right there. Little 11 millimeter plug, and I'll go ahead and put it back in. That's drained enough, but you may still have some when you pull the CV axle. So probably a good idea to just have the drain pan under it while you're pulling it, and make sure and get that back tight. Of course, I already drained the oil, 15 millimeter, and it's basically the same thing on the other side, except like I told you, the CV axle is a little bit longer, and it's got a bearing, so I'll probably show you that, unless sometimes they'll come out right there. I think it will. We may just leave that in there. So let me get this side done, and I'll show you the finished product. Alright guys, got the CV axle out. There she is right there. It was very simple. Just be easy with the speed sensor wire. You don't want to break that. That's probably about $100 sensor. And everything else was simple. It just pried right out of there. Just had to use the flathead. And yeah, that was pretty simple. So I'm going to do the other side right quick. And like I said, if I run into any other issues that this side doesn't have, I will let you know. And also, you can go ahead and put this stuff loosely back together. That way you can set this thing down when you're about to pull the engine. I just put the bolts back in and just hand tighten them, because it's not like it's going to be driving anywhere. And don't put the wheel back on though, because we're going to have to come back around here and pop this cover off to get to the transmission mount right there. So just loosely put this stuff on and you should be good to go. Alright, so I got everything off on the passenger side. There wasn't really much difference. The CV axle does not come out of the transmission. You can take that off, and we will when we go to separate the engine and transmission. But right now we're just going to leave that alone because it's not in our way. So it just pops off of that spline there. You just have to pry on it a little bit. It's got a little lock ring. So you get that off, and there's nothing else different on this side. Everything's the same as the driver's side. So here is one of our connectors that I was talking about that we're going to have to take loose. It's just a click type connector. It's going to be hard for me to hold the camera and get it off, so that just pops off. And then there's one more. Try to get it under there for you. There's one more that goes to this electric power steering. I'll get it off and I'll try to show you the connector. Might have to show you once I get the engine pulled, but I'll show you how to get that off. So now that we're done here, the next step we're going to do is to get the exhaust off. And from what I'm seeing, the best way to get the exhaust off is to get up here. So let me get some tools ready and get set up over here, get a ladder since I got this thing up in the air, and I'll show you how to get that off. Alright guys, I got my ladder set up. So what we're going to have to do first is get this bracket off. This was for your intake cover and everything. There's two bolts. There's one here and one here. They feel like 13 millimeters. I could be wrong, but you'll want to get those two off, get this bracket out of the way, and then if you see down here, there's, not that one, zoom in a little bit for you. Right there, there's some 10 millimeter bolts. There's 1, 2, 3, looks like 3 10 millimeter bolts that hold this exhaust shield on. So we'll want to get that off, and then down below it there's some other bolts. I'm not going to be able to show this why I'm taking it off on the camera because it's just too tucked away. So I'm going to get them both off, and then I'll show you how to get the exhaust bolts off. Alright guys, so I got the cover off, pretty easy. A little tight getting out of that hole, just don't be afraid. If you bend this, you can always straighten it back out. The bolts weren't stuck. Yours may be a little more stuck if your car is a little more rusty than this one. This one's pretty clean. So just take it easy with these bolts. If they feel like they're going to snap, you know, tighten them back up, then loosen them, spray some PB Blaster on them, stuff like that. But otherwise, that was pretty easy. So now what we're going to do is, you see those bolts right there? They look like 15 millimeters. There's 3 of them. There's one here and one there. We're going to take all 3 of them loose, and this engine's going to be completely loose other than the mounts. So be easy with these two. Sometimes these can break or strip off, so just take it easy with them. If you have an impact, that's the best way, because with rusty bolts and nuts, if you hit them with the impact, once they break free, just don't stop till they get loose, and it tends to help rusty bolts get out faster without breaking them. So I'm going to get those off right quick, and then we'll get to the engine mounts and get this thing pulled. So I got the exhaust loose, and I also got those connectors loose that were down here. This power steering connector was a little bit difficult. I actually damaged the side of it a little bit. I might have to repair it, but it was tough to get off. But it's just a squeeze type, but they just got it flipped the wrong way, and they got a safety thing on it. So, but I got it off. So what we're going to do now is hook this thing up to a hoist. I'll get it hooked up. I'll get a strap hooked up on here, and then what we'll do is we'll take this off right here. Should be an 18 millimeter, I think. There's 2 of them. That'll take care of that mount. Then you got this front or side, whichever way you want to decide to look at it. It's just a bolt that runs through here. You can leave the mounts on the engine. I don't think we'll have a problem with that. And there's an identical one right in the back there. If you can see it there. Same thing. And then if you look right here, there's a mount. There's the bolts for it right there. And then it's on the other side of this wheel well. Kind of hard to see probably. I don't know if you'll be able to get around to it. It's right here somewhere. Might actually be on the other side. Can't quite remember how this one went. But anyway, so we'll get the chain hooked up. Get all these mounts taken off. We may end up just taking these 15 millimeter bolts that are right here off, but I feel like we're going to have to take that off in order to get this thing to move. And then also we have the shifter cable left. To get the shifter cable off, you're going to want to take those, I believe those look like 13 millimeter bolts off, and then the shifter cable's right here, and it's just a bushing, so you just pop it loose and just stick a flathead up there and pop it loose, and then get that shifter out of the way so you don't break it. So once again, all this stuff's going to be really hard to see on the camera, so I'm going to get them off, and if I have any difficulties, I will let you know, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, so I got just about all the mounts loose. I left these 2 in still. I just wanted to show y'all. This is the transmission mount. That's the one that was laying right here, just like that. These 3 bolts, 15 millimeters, they were very hard to get out because they had some kind of Loctite thread sealant in there. But once you get them out, then you just take 3 13 millimeter bolts that are right here, or 4, excuse me. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. They just go, it goes right in the side of that hole there. Just take those out. Those were easy to come out, and then that just kind of slides out. It's a little tricky, but I got it out pretty easy. And then I got the shifter cable off too. And let me set this down. I ended up taking the rest of the battery tray and the junction block off right here. It was just a 10 millimeter bolt that held this on, and the wires were clipped on in various places. And then this is the rest of that battery tray. It had 2 13 millimeter bolts there, and then 2 up here, and it came right off. Nothing to it. So I just got that out of the way. That way we don't have no problems getting the engine out from the top. So and then I hooked my strap up. They don't really have any hooking points on this because it's supposed to go out the bottom, but I hooked it up right here on this bracket right here at the alternator. And then I found a bracket where these bolts were right here. I found a bracket that'll fit right here. I just had something laying around, so you may have to make something or buy something or whatever, and that'll pull it up real quick. So I got it hooked up. So what I'm going to do is get the tension off of it, and then I'm going to get the rest of these motor mounts off, and we're going to pull this thing out of here. Alright, I got all the engine mounts taken off. That back one, it's the same as the front, but it was a little tight getting it out of there. The bolt wasn't wanting to go past. I had to use a hammer and a pick to hammer it out, and the exhaust was a little bit stuck. I had to kind of just wiggle on it a little bit, and it popped free. But now I got this thing all the way up in the air. All the mounts are loose. It's a very tight fit. Like I said, I got the AC compressor off, and I just took the crank bolt off. I didn't take the harmonic balancer off. I just took the bolt off. So it should fit right through here. I'm going to twist this thing around and get it out of here, and we'll start disassembling it from the transmission. And it's out of here. I had to lift it up over this. It wouldn't come out of this spot here, so I had to lift it straight up over it, but it came right out. Piece of cake. Just take your time. The hardest clearance spot I found was right here on this master cylinder. Just make sure you don't hit that. You don't want to break that. That's expensive. So I got it all out. Now we're going to get set up here, and we'll start disassembling the transmission from the engine. And then we're also in this video going to go ahead and take this apart, and we're going to figure out why this failed. So let me get some things set up, and I will be right back. Alright guys, so we got this engine pulled out now. I got the vehicle pulled out of here. I got to clean my shop up a little bit. But we're going to go ahead and, instead of replacing the engine, we're just going to do the timing chains. Customer wants the cheapest way possible. So that's what we're going to do. I will show you how to do all the timing chain stuff in the second part of this video. The second video will include the timing chain stuff, oil pan, as well as putting it in and starting it up and seeing what happens. So thank you for watching this video. Thank you for subscribing to my page. If you haven't, please subscribe. Hit that like button and the notification button so you can get notified on any videos I post. And I just greatly appreciate it. Hope y'all have a blessed day, blessed evening, afternoon, whatever. Thank you.